system, what comes in your mind? I'll answer. All right. So what I see is a very beautiful website that is scrollable and that has components. Each component is accessible, and it was designed by a known company. All right, so basically what we will think about is material design, or for others, material IO, and other design systems like Shopify or 23andMe and others. So basically every single product that is really known and famous has its own design systems, and it's open for others to use. Okay, so for those who don't really know what is a design system, it's a collection of guidelines, principles, and assets that are relevant to a business or a product. So the purpose of this design system is to help the businesses and the teams to learn, build, and grow it as well. So we will talk about the benefits and why do we have to use a design system, even here at PhazeRo. So about the components, it's mainly the style and design guidelines. So colors, spacing, illustration, typography, and for some items here, they are just fixed. Like for example, the spacing, it's the same in all design systems. Pattern libraries or components libraries, like the images and cards, navigation, overlays, and so on. And then we have motion guidelines and content style guides, like the language, how to write, objectives, as well as principles. But mainly, it's about style and design guidelines and component libraries. So it differs, like each product or each design system has its own components that's relying on the needs of that project itself. All right. So each element of the design system consists of 3 pillars. So the first one is rules. There must be a rule. Like for example, like it has to follow the web content accessibility guidelines. Constraints, for example, it shouldn't include any offensive languages or harsh words. Principle, like pair the icons that you use with a description, and that's either to be displayed to the user or in the code, and that's in using ARIA or alternative text to keep it accessible. So what's the problem then? Why do we actually need a design system? So to start with, an efficiency, and that's mainly the time taken to accomplish a task. Like for example, if we need a table for a project and there is another project that includes a table, why not just reusing the component that we used previously? Because basically it's the same. Why redoing the work over and over again. That's not only about designers, but also developers. Insecurity. So this is mainly about UX designers, where it takes time to decide whether this is the right thing to do, or there is another way to do it. Like, for example, the placement of these buttons. So either to have the previous button first, or to have the next button the first. So this is like a debate. So there's no right answers. So it will take time to decide. And also either to have the navigation bar as hamburger or listed. This is an example of insecurity. And then the colors that has to be used for the buttons or the components. So either to have it colored, or to reduce the amount of colors. Here there is these second images, right? And the first is wrong, but for other designers, this can take time, so they can decide what's right and what's wrong. Inconsistency, and this is a real problem. So the thing is, you start and then you use different shapes of button, because let's say that the project is really huge and there are like 87 different screen, and you're a human, so you forget. So having a design system will help us and overcome that problem, where everything is set beforehand and everything is ready to be used. So just an example of inconsistency in iPhone, the navigation or the header is different in notes than in other screens. And also in search and in music or Apple Music is different. So here there is no hover effect, where here it's in red. So this is considered as inconsistency. All right, then how to solve this problem? Use existing design systems. Yep, this is right. But the thing is, every design system built by a company basically serve their needs, and it has to be considered as an internal design system. But the thing is, they published it to get known, or people can look how they work. So copying others' design systems it might work, like talking about Material.io or Material Design and Bootstrap, but that's not the case for all design systems. And having every single application or software that includes the same components as every single company around the world, this is boring. So that's why companies tend to build their own design systems. Create our own here in PhazeRo, yes, inshallah. This is a mission. So why do we have to build our own design system? Well, because it will increase the velocity and time to market. So whenever if there is a new project coming, we all know what to use and everything is there. So all what we have to do is take these components and use them in every single project. Strictly speaking, that some projects are similar in a way, so the components wouldn't be that different. So reusing the components as well as the codes will increase the velocity and will decrease the amount of time taken to launch the platform. Better product value and user experience, and this is mainly about consistency. So whenever the app is exactly the same in every screen, the typography used, the colors, the shapes of button, the cards, the opacity, and all that, this will enhance the user experience, and people will or users will spend more time in the software, and they were more likely to like it. Less time and money spent. So this is the same as the first point. So the velocity will go high. So the amount of time taken as well as the money spent will decrease. So I was reading an article, and what it had is there were about a company, I'm not sure what company is that, but they calculated the amount of cash they saved just for having a design system, and that was 1.5 million. And that's a lot over years. يعني. Increasing collaboration and knowledge sharing, so all the teams or all the members are on the same page. We all know what exactly to do, and even the onboarding for new joiners at PhazeRo will be easier because they will know exactly what to use and how to use it. That's mainly it. So any questions or thoughts? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. My question is around, so we might have missed it, was around, if we wanted to implement a design system as part of our regular workflow at PhazeRo,
Yeah.
what would you say kind of the high-level steps are to achieving that?
So to start with, we will have to prepare the components, and that's using Sketch, and then we will use Zeppelin, and definitely we will be needing a developer who will develop all the components. The page that can have all the components could be an easy page, like having HTML and CSS, but the thing is to have the components ready, accessible, and responsive. So having designers and developers to help us to have a design system.
Okay.
In my case, while I was listening, I couldn't but think about the وش اسمه? Design thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And basically how as a developer you can understand what you're going to use by just by looking into the design. Like you're going to basically think there is a field, so I need a function that will serve that field and give it what it wants. And basically how you can take that further and like to design a whole system or a whole solution just by looking at the designs that the UI UX made.
Correct. But the design system is more about a style guide rather than design thinking, because as you know, design thinking is set of process. So starting from empathize to design to implement and so on. So the design system could be used in design or development phase only. So not before, like in planning or testing.
I'm also curious to hear from the team a little bit, maybe more from the developer side. What are some of the pains that you've experienced that you feel that perhaps having a design system might solve? Maybe even some actual examples would be good.
Actually, Mimon has a question on the chat if anyone wants to answer it. Sorry for the interruption.
Well, Maimuna, we don't have a design system yet. We'll be working on it shortly, inshallah.
Well, I get so excited when I heard this. Sorry about the noises around me, though. I get so excited when I heard this from you that it's, as Masoud say, the amount of problems it's going to solve is really huge. When we start actually using someone else's design system and their component system, we start using them as normal. And then comes the stage where you have to modify them. Modification, okay. And then comes to the components that we're going to need, but they're not there. We have to make them from scratch using the CSS and everything. Plus that we don't have a repository or something where we keep our like reusable components yet. We don't have that yet. So having a design system and having our own components on the cloud somewhere, that would be like super helpful.
Agreed.
I think you have your what they call it, your accomplice to help build this design system. I feel like Maimoon is a real believer here.
Yeah, so you got a developer.
Yeah.
To answer that from my side, I think having a design system means that you as a developer can predict what would the UI UX would design just by maybe understanding what, for example, what is the project is about. So the train of thoughts will be like, okay, they need a dashboard. Our UI UX using this system design, our design system, will most likely gonna include this component or discard that component. So yeah. I am more ready for it when it comes.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing for me looking at, for me, one of the reasons why I keep harping on about this is, when I look at the designs that typically I would put together and should sometimes even take it so far as to build a prototype on Sketch. And then when I see it implemented, I'm like, this is very different to what was designed. And then typically they'll say, well, we couldn't find the right component, or we didn't have time to build this component. And therefore, we had to kind of compromise.
Yeah.
So it is my understanding that a design system should help mitigate, or at least reduce, if not eliminate, that from happening. That way, the design that you put forward is actually what hopefully will be one-to-one in the real application.
Yeah, and the final product could be exactly the same as in the sketch.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's it from my side.
A question, like here in PhazeRo, if we decided to make a design system, who would make it?
So yeah, so basically me and a developer or two.
So it will be more likely Maimuna, Rahma, Zamzam.
Yeah, someone who knows React.
or anyone, yeah, who knows React.
Not only React though, I guess we have to make like 2 versions for Angular too, because those guys are gonna cry.
I mean,
We need it too.
are we using Angular? Like, we never used it in any project except for
Right. Okay, maybe most of our projects are in React, so we start with React, but maybe in the
yeah,
future, I mean, depending on the customers and stuff.
probably, yeah.
Some of, yeah.
I don't think we need like a specific like language or something, because it will be like a standard that can be applied يعني, for any different platform languages.
And in this case, it would be a bit more difficult to create because
it
one
has to be
thing,
coded.
It won't be
yeah,
like codes. It will be like just a design, if I'm not mistaken.
So it's not just a design, Aisha, it's also about developing these designs. So
I
not
had
just to help me, but to help developers. Yes, Masood.
Oh, sorry to cut you off there. Would you be able to maybe just like, I know putting you on the spot here, but maybe just quickly find an example of like a design system online? I think it might help just to like visualize what you're talking about as far as actually having the,
Yeah.
not just sort of like the dimensions and the color scheme, but also in addition to like, this is what a component is, this is the CSS snippet.
Okay, so found one. I'll just share my screen.
Okay, how about if we, like, if you guys write it in JavaScript, for example, since both Angular and React can read JavaScript, even if like the component has to take a function, it is basically a JavaScript function, so it should work on both sides, or is that not possible?
I think it would be possible, but would be way more difficult than to make it just with React, because for React, you have this something called style components. You can combine it with Tailwind and then something else. I forgot the name. Storybook,
okay.
and you already would have your whole system ready, like way faster than you can do it with JavaScript alone.
Oh yeah, in that case, it doesn't make sense to do it in JavaScript.
It is possible though,
Yeah.
but takes way more effort.
And that's the key thing you need to be thinking about. Is I was actually talking to Ahad earlier today. Like, your time is the most precious commodity you have at PhazeRo and in life, and you figure out how you want to prioritize that to make maximum impact in the same time. So probably want to prioritize focusing on React. Maybe if later in the future we realize it makes sense, you could sort of maybe revert to kind of the JavaScript approach.
And there are applications that can simplify the process, like using Zeppelin, for example, and modifying the codes, maybe, if needed. But
Do you
to
have any
start with
examples?
Zeppelin, for Zeppelin, or to start with, this is the material design. So how to design bottom app bars. So you have Android codes. This is how it looks like with instructions on how to use it. So colors, spaces, as well as icons and all that. So this is an example of design system.
Okay. And, you know, I think just to Aisha's point, I think also it extends the other way too. If you look at GitHub, they have their own pretty cool design system. And that includes things like literally casing. This is the thing drives me crazy. You guys all know this. You know, like, you know, making sure that you have a standard casing. So we could have like a default PhazeRo where, you know, for GitHub, for example, their standard is no uppercase on any buttons, no uppercase ever. But it's standard, right? So that when you're building something, when you just say, look, do this, apply PhazeRo standard, everybody knows what that means. They have something to refer to. And so it just reduces the amount of as we talked about inefficiency, right? That iterative, no, change this, change that. No, I
Yeah.
can communicate many things with just saying PhazeRo standard.
So another example of a design system. This is 23andMe design system. So it mainly includes HTML codes. So you can see the buttons are all set, as well as the cards, colors, and all that. Like there are different examples, and there are like many design systems around.
Hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments?
Just one comment. What is in front of me reminds me of Bootstrap.
Exactly.
So
Bootstrap is a
everything
design system.
there showed, and the CSS code, right? Like Gumbo developed.
Yep, exactly. So Bootstrap is a design system.
Okay, cool. So I guess, you know, from an actionable perspective, can we say that in the, let's say, midterm future, we can expect to see a PhazeRo design system emerge?
Inshallah.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Okay, we can wrap up. That's the half an
So
hour.
thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. That's Ahad.
Thank you.
Thank you.